Welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are. I was just thrown under the bus right now. Michael will be here in a second. Yes, this is Teams Friday. We just came from the show with Jimmy and Marin on the same YouTube channel. So Teams Rooms Tech Talk. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, make sure you do that right now. Michael will be here in just a second while he fixes his audio. But we're looking to have a great show, a great Teams Friday, which is always one of the more laid back show because we have a great guest on today. Greg, it's good to have you and good to see you again. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's lovely to be with you. It's been a busy old week, and this is a lovely way for it to finish up for me, that's for sure.
So where are you right now? It seems like you're in the woods. It looks quite great.
Well, I'm in my friend's house in Denmark. I've been here working in various MTR related things this week, but he lives in this most beautiful summer house, and I'm overlooking a lake and trees and ducks and swans. It's all
Yeah,
very
audio
beautiful.
still crap, Mike.
You're
Your
giving me
audio,
what crap?
a lot of feedback from your audio.
Your feedback from me?
Yeah, I hear myself.
I
I'm
just
gonna
switched.
figure it out. No, just muted you so you can figure it out. So you're in Denmark. A lot of MTR related. It looks like you're in the woods.
Yeah, so that's a reflection, but we're right in the middle of the woods, and it's most beautiful setting. I'm in the north of Sealand, which is the island that Copenhagen, the capital, is on. I've been here this week having meetings with Epson at the DNP factory. They're the people that make these ALR screens, and just doing a whole bunch of MTR related things.
I think we met maybe now 2 years ago. First time we started speaking when we released the vision around front row. So we were speaking quite a lot. Tell for the people who have no idea who you are. Tell a little bit about yourself, what you do, what the company does.
Okay, so well, I've been around working in meeting rooms and meeting spaces for a long time, but my background is in projection, lighting, and displays. I've worked on the academic side of things, writing some academic work. Also been heavily involved with standards because when you work with higher grade equipment, you want to put numbers on why things are good and why things are bad.
Mhm.
So I kind of operate with two hats. I am co-owner of Visual Displays, who make and design and distribute ambient light rejecting displays, and we make simulation displays and all kinds of advanced things with projectors and other display technologies. And then I also have a consulting practice, which has now become a big and live thing for me, particularly since you guys have been doing such amazing things with Teams rooms.
How Michael, is your audio okay now? You want to
I
test?
I hope so. It better be.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I
You
switched
sound
to
great.
I switched to some company that has some of the world's best, if not the world's best, speakerphones, and I got rid of the microphone, the podcast stuff, and
Mhm.
I'm working things just like a normal hybrid worker now, and not like some podcast nerd.
Never call
Like
you
you,
normal, Tesla.
yeah, yeah. I might as well use this equipment that they ship me. I might as well use it. Use it. So hi, Greg. By the way, hi everybody. For some reason, nobody complained on whatever audio. We're talking about video. Who cares about audio, right, Greg? Audio is totally overrated.
Some of my good friends like Harold Steindler would have a go at you for that
Oh
one.
yeah,
We'll,
he's
we'll
and
let
he's
we'll let it go.
and he's probably here as well. So
I think
so
most of my
Yeah, careful
coworkers
what you
would
say.
have a problem with my statement. So,
Greg, I'm not trying to take over Teams Friday, by the way. I will be leaving in like 10 minutes. But I do want to ask Greg, how has your life changed over the past 2 years after we released this vision? And how much has your vision on rooms changed as well?
Well, I mean that's a great question because it speaks to the fact that my life professionally has changed massively. Um, when Microsoft released those first kinds of vision documents, and Jimmy Vaughan was one of the authors of those. That was like a real all roads lead to Rome moment for me, because the unique thing that you did, which was the area that I was already working in, is to think and envision about what the space itself needs to be in a Teams room. And it's not just thinking about the equipment, it's actually thinking about what the user experience needs to be in the 3D space, in the room, all of the sensory cues that we get, just thinking in those terms, and that lovely kind of nimble approach that you have at the Hive. That was a real life changer for me. And I started to, a friend of mine got me to start doing daily posts on LinkedIn, which I started to do. I already had a reasonable following, but as soon as I started to talk consistently about Teams rooms, that's when it really caught fire. And it's just been a marvelous experience for me. But the kind of the paradox is that, I've been involved in all kinds of standards, the technical works, and I'd like to think that I know, a lot about what I do. But the reality is that the more you know, the the more you realize how much you still got left to learn. So the real change for me is just the huge change in velocity of the learning curve that I've been in. So I'm having a whale of a time because I'm doing some great work, working with some great people, but I'm also just learning so much on a daily basis.
What are the standards that you think need to be revised now? If you compare to, because I remember we first met, you were talking about nothing but standards, right? And you also said that if you look at how we envisioned front row and signature rooms, not all standards were met, right? Speaking about the content and the height of content, et cetera, et cetera. So, do these things need to be revised? Or do you have a different vision on it now?
Yeah, I think that I think in terms of standards in the context of Teams rooms as being standards 2.0. But I mean, I was talking about standards. I still do. I'm massively passionate about it. I've just come to the end of a 3-year term leading Avixa's standards group, and I'm still writing co-writing a new standard user experience design for AV, which is going to have a big impact on Teams rooms. But I think the thing is that the background to this is that during the pandemic, which has been the real accelerant, the real driver for this massive pace of change that we've seen, the whole thing was just to get spaces functioning, and standards went right out of the window. And as we came out of the pandemic, touch wood that we're on that, we're still on that course. The consultants, people saying, okay, well, we had to do things in a hurry, but looking back, we wouldn't have done this, we wouldn't have done that. So standards have become more of a focus item. But my own view of it is, and this is my own personal view, is that we've got stuff to do now. We haven't got time to take time out for a year, 18 months, and there are a fantastic array of standards out there, and so my approach is to take existing standards, use them critically. Do not regard them as being like the Bible, and you have to obey every chapter and verse. You have to take what you need, because it's like when your kids do the homework, when you hope they do their homework. And
This goes straight to GPT nowadays.
Yeah, oh, don't. Well, that's a whole other story. But they don't get full marks if they just go to the right answer. They've got to show their workings. And I think that if you can show that you've taken something or some elements from a standard, use them critically, then that's absolutely valid. And that's the kind of approach that I take in that area.
You can't spell Avixa without AI.
Wow.
I'll remember that one.
So hi, Greg.
Hey.
when I first met you, which was at ISE in Barcelona 2 years ago, I think we're all gonna go. I'd never heard of Avixa, and there's all these standards out there. So can you explain? Like, so when I hear standards, I'm like, what is the pixel density on a screen, or what is the brightness of a monitor, or whatever? What all am I missing? Because I think this is a leading question. There's more to standards than just how much
Okay.
power is required to process something.
Okay, so I'm going to take the two main parts out of what you asked me there.
All right.
What is a VIXA, and then to talk a bit more about standards and what it really means. So first of all, a VIXA is the Global Audiovisual Association. And I've been involved with it for many years. I was involved in the leadership of it. I was the first like non-US president back in 2012, as it was now. You know, the whole point about Avixa is that they run these amazing trade shows. They run the Infocom trade show. We used to be called Infocom back in the day. And also we're co-owners of the ISE show. Thank you very much. That's great queue up. The magical thing that the association does is that they make a whole bunch of money out of running these trade shows, and not just those two shows, but the other shows that they run globally, Beijing, Mumbai, and smaller shows around the world, and other conferences and events now. And they use that money for the good of the industry, and so that funds standards, that funds a whole bunch of you know, training and certification, and that's just an ongoing power for the good. I mean, obviously, we had a great big wobble in the pandemic because you know, the main revenue stream that we had as an association just kind of went away, which nobody was had anticipated. But coming back to standards, you know, standards themselves is a bit of a weasel word, because it can mean like setting a certain you know, you know, like a level of quality, but it can also mean standardization, as in making something that's repeatable. And both of those kind of elements are relevant here, because I think the other you know, the other part of the bigger part of the picture with regards to rolling out Teams rooms is you know, particularly on an enterprise scale, is thinking how you can create, you know, good experiences and replicate that you know, on a global scale. But the thing with standards that I particularly work with, and you know, just drilling down on the various types of standards that there are, is that the standards that that we particularly specialize in Avixa are performance standards. So that kind of chimes very much with the way that the team at the Hive works. So you know, a performance standard is a way of describing what a good user experience it is, but expressing it in measurable, you know, measurable and repeatable metrics, so that you can use that to specify. And again, a really key thing about that is that it's not saying you've got to use this piece of equipment or that piece of equipment. What it does, it describes what a good user experience it is, and then it leaves it open to the vendors, the integrators, you know, the AV consultants, the whole food chain. You know, it leaves it up to them to get to that experience, and to be quite agnostic about it.
I see Martin joined us, and now that Martin's here, it's time for me to say goodbye. Nothing personal, by the way, Martin. I was already planning to leave. Good to see you all. Greg, I'll see you in the UK in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Great to see you, Michelle.
Yeah.
Bye, Michelle.
Good show. Take care. Make sure you like and subscribe. Teams Rooms Tech Talk. Bye.
YouTube.
Turn on
Smash the bell.
Smash the bell.
Hi, Martin.
Hello. Sorry, mate.
Do you know Greg? Have you two met?
Don't think in person. I know of of Greg.
I know of you, Marcian, too. No, nice to see you on the call.
Yeah, sorry, I'm juggling kids who are off school for Easter holidays, so I'm trying to work from home and look after children at the same time.
Isn't that why you have a cat?
I've escaped to Denmark to get away from that gig, Martin.
I was going to say, I like your background. I was trying to wonder where are you in, like a lodge or?
So that's the. I'm in my friend's study, and it's a summer house in Denmark, and yeah, so you're seeing the reflection of this beautiful kind of lake and trees and stuff in front of me.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
unlike
nice.
Jimmy Vaughn, he's actually in a cabin,
Yes.
not just a
Whole
backdrop
pioneer spirit.
of wood. So on a VIXA standard, so there are standards as far as like how high you should mount a display and width of a display versus a table and things like that. Is that accurate?
So yeah, so what you're talking about there is the DISCAS standard. That was a standard that I moderated, and we finally got it out into the big wide world, I think 2013 or 2014, and we're just having it up for review now, particularly in respect of what Teams rooms and Front Row has thrown up with that. So what the main part of the standard has been the basic thing about deciding what image size should be, or what distance people should be away, or to put it the other way around, what distance viewers should be from a display of a particular size if you run it that way around. But it also, and this is absolutely key to Teams rooms, and in particular Front Row, it also has metrics for the horizontal viewing angles and the vertical viewing angles. So that, yes, Michael, that kind of has a big impact on what height the screen is and what height the screen should be off the ground, and the relationship between the viewer's eye position and the top of the screen. So effectively, it's a kind of an algorithm, and we use that to design and configure meeting spaces.
One question that comes up a lot, and assuming we're not going to have a heckler stand in our signature Teams rooms, is where do you mount the camera? Above, below, to the left, to the right, in the middle? Is there best guidance on that? Obviously, you try to avoid the eye of God or the eye of Sauron view, and you don't want the up your nose by putting it too low. So when the display is mounted eye level to me, or at least eye level to the front row bottom, where do I put the camera?
Yeah. So just thinking back to the impact that it was first, but when it first appeared, it was the enhanced meeting space, and now it's the signature meeting room, and now it's medium signature medium room. I see it. That's the latest tweet to it. So see, I am awake. No, seriously, when that came out, I mean that there were two particular things that themes or threads that were particularly groundbreaking, and the first thing was the move to a really large size display, because the core driver there is that now in the future of hybrid, we're going to need multiple content windows on the same screen at the same time, and we've got to present that. So that was step one, and in order to do that, that's why oh, this is great. I love this video. And so that's why the Microsoft made this move to projection. But the way they did it was to use a projector, as you've kind of pointed out, Michael, either mounted on the floor or mounted on the ceiling using an ultra short throw projection lens. And so what that means is you've got the projector very close to the screen, either just underneath or just above. And so the light path is shining at a very acute angle. And so what you see in this space, which is the smaller space, is that, okay, you can have the camera mounted just underneath the screen. But in the signature space, the really incredible thing, there we go. You can just see it's in line with the bottom of the screen. That's it. That's a Jabra Panacast 50 there. My $10 is in the post for that, Mr. Stressler. The really incredible thing that was to me the major design step forward, apart from moving to the correct image size, is that we've got a small form factor camera that is up there in free space and can be in front of the screen. Now, for many spaces, budget like this one with a six or seven seat array, budget will mean that you would use a camera bar like that. But what we're seeing now, particularly in the rooms that are being designed and being installed at the moment, is a move is separating the camera. So you're just using a small form factor camera and having it up there in free space, and having the projector with an ultra short throw lens. What that means is that there's actually there's a large space envelope within which to place the camera. So I think that's a pretty exciting development. I think there's a whole bunch to talk about cameras there, because there's some very exciting developments, particularly using multi-camera setups. But as yet, to be honest, I don't think they're there yet. And I think that the one thing that the one thing that is like a core requirement in the space is that you have one camera, properly positioned camera there in that kind of position, and then any other cameras are an addition. I don't know if that speaks to the question that you were throwing at me, or whether I just
I forgot the question.
Mounting of the camera.
Yes.
Camera position,
that's why Martin's
position
here.
is a great big thing, and that's a massive topic, and and the beauty of what they do at the Hive is that they can ideate, and then they can just put those sorts of things in play and do it quickly and just see if it works.
So I think I know your answer, but I'm going to ask anyway because people don't. So we're talking front row and signature rooms and projectors and all that. But let's skip projectors and let's talk classic displays. Single display or dual display for front row or signature room?
Well, I think you know what's coming. I actually have pretty strong views about this, but I'm respectful, as ever, of anybody who dares to.
You're respectful of people who are wrong.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I deeply resemble that remark. So, yeah, I feel very strongly that that twin screens do not work with front row. And there are a variety of reasons with that, but the main one I feel is that the whole front row experience is predicated around having that centered content window, and you just can't do that with great catch. You just can't do that with two displays. And the other thing is using twin displays is that if you're using them on a conventional, we're basically moving away from the rectangular bowling alley kind of table design, and it's some sort of a tapered table design that we're seeing, or a wedge shape. Some of the video that you were showing earlier on are the so-called gumdrop or guitar pick style tables. But if you have two rows of people, the problem with twin displays is that the people at the back of the table, the people at the front of the table are going to block the view of the display on their side, and there's a kind of a double whammy effect there. You need to size the display so that the people at the back of the space can see and actually read and engage with the content, because that's real kind of meeting 101 design principles. And if you increase the size of the monitor, because you've got two monitors, that kind of pushes the whole array much wider, so that you've got a kind of a negative design driver there. So apart from that, yeah, I'm a massive fan of dual screen displays for front row.
So I don't know if you see in the comment section, there's a question from Zhao asking, what do you think about a really large, about 25 people executive room using a C or banana shaped table, but without using an ultra large display, instead using 3 displays with 2 on the side mirroring what the center one is doing, or at least having displays elsewhere so people in a larger room can look at those instead of the center of room display.
But mirroring.
Yeah, the mirroring.
What do you? I mean, I'm just talking for England here, or Denmark as it is this week. What do you think, Martin?
I'm just trying to think how sitting in that space mirroring. I guess it'd be the same look and feel, but are you going to have? You're not going to have that central immersive kind of experience. And then what? The camera is surely only going to be in one, even though you're mirroring the display. So where would naturally people be looking? I would still agree, single. I mean, every mock-up and everything I've seen and experienced when I've sat and looked at the signature rooms is always one large display, and then when you add in raised hands and chat, but I guess mirroring and having multiple screens, I don't know how you balance that with cameras and making sure everyone gets that good experience at the same time.
I assume Joel's asking about a signature room view, so that I don't think signature room is designed for very large rooms, 25 people executive. It's meant for that eye-to-eye contact level, though this screenshot doesn't show them looking eye-to-eye because they've got the different grid, the different view. But I guess in a large room, you'd have to use a different view anyway because you don't have that eye-to-eye level interaction. So I would go with front row isn't the right. Crap. What is it? What is Jimmy saying? It's just a view. It's just a
layout.
Just a layout. So I would recommend other layouts. In this room will always be content. So he's clarifying he's not looking for a signature room, just for content. I suppose that's not bad then to have. I've heard of mirroring, but usually when it's laid out like kind of U-shaped where people are facing each other, and then you have beneath the desk, so that if I'm looking at Greg, I can then look down beneath Greg, and there's a display. So there's one on the right, the main one, and then one's underneath or in front of the part of the table that blocks his legs. And similarly, Greg can then look at me. So I've heard of layouts like that where you can then look across the U to the person instead of having to look left and then move your head. Okay, what's there? Let me talk to Greg, and then that's changed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I'd throw in there, Trester, is as you're about 2 foot taller than me, you're always looking down on me anyway. But we're just leaving that
physically. Mentally, you're a giant. Mentally, to me, you're a giant, and I look up to you. Well, physically, there's nothing I can do, man. Dad was tall.
I wish you could tell my kids that, and maybe they'd believe you. Maybe they'd take it from someone else. No, I think just to come back to the question, I think I am seeing a lot of very interesting theoretical layouts, but what happens in that is that effectively what you are creating or trying to create is really quite a complex algorithm. And what happens when you have a complex situation is you just have to establish what the hierarchy of needs are, because it's not going to be a black and white answer. You've got this situation to show it, so it's simply going to be that. One thing has got to take precedence over another. The issue with that thing, with having the displays, within the arc or the area of the table, is that there's a whole bunch of things there, but one of the very elemental things that often gets forgotten in MTR design is how important it is to present to the remote participants. A lot of systems in enterprise levels, they are for internal comms and so on. But in this hybrid world now, where where most, if not all, of the meetings, client meetings, will be taking place, in a hybrid context, how the space self presents to the third party, how the space is effectively branded, is to me absolutely top of the list when it comes to prioritizing it. And just to come back to the comment I was making about camera position, is that in my view, there's never a circumstance where a remote viewer doesn't need to have, if not constantly, then very often, to be able to read the room, to be able to see that whole space, and to feel engaged and go, yeah, she's sitting there, he's sitting there, and just to have that kind of just have that mental map there, and in a constant state of refreshment. So not a simple answer to that, but I think there are some very interesting room layouts coming out. But you've always got to take it back to thinking about, it's not just this space, it's how we are presenting to the big wide world.
Yeah,
and without getting too far in the future, some of the IntelliFrame things, you're sending 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people, but also potentially a panoramic view of the room, so that remotely you can say, okay, I just need to see where people are. So when I turn my head to the right, who is Michael speaking to? Am I speaking to Greg or Martin, assuming we're in the same room? I turn my head to the right. So then you can see, oh, it's Martin to his right, even though what StreamYard is showing, well, technically you're on my left, but whatever, is that, okay, Greg's on the left, Martin's on the right, even though this layout is kind of left, right, top, bottom. It's hard to tell. So if you can pan out, you can then mentally map when I turn to, I guess, to the left, I'm speaking to Martin in actuality, even though the layout has us in different order.
Yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears slightly, and what is visual display?
Okay, so Visual Displays is a specialist company based in the UK, and we are designers, manufacturers, and distributors of mostly things to do with projection, and primarily we're known for ambient light projecting screen technologies.
So you're a display manufacturer, essentially?
Yeah, but only in a specialist sense, not in the sense that, in the context of, the big wide world of MTR displays, not like that. We design and build displays using our kind of design algorithms, our specialist CAD skills, and combine projectors and screens to do particular jobs. I mean, at the moment now, we're working, closely with Epson to expand the range of displays that we have for front row and MTR. But my background, I grew up in projection, decades ago, and I do specialist work and consultancy with in simulation displays, displays for museums and attractions. I mean, the kind of the cliche about how I earn my living, with displays and projection, is that I kind of get I've always kind of got the jobs that, on the one hand, you could say that no one else could do, but on the other hand, you could say that other people were too clever to even think about taking on in the first place. And so that, so Michael, that was why. I was saying, to when Michelle, well, I actually don't know if you're on when you were sorting your audio then, when Michelle was asking me earlier on, that was why, when, during the pandemic, and I made my pivot, more directly into this space. This was why, I had this kind of all roads lead to Rome moment, because putting projection into MTRs is challenging. But my little team, those are exactly the kind of challenges that we work to, but also we working to them on a kind of a standards base. So yeah, we've done all kinds of crazy things with mostly with projection. So what you can see there is a projected display at one of the biggest metro stations in the UK. That's King's Cross St Pancras. When I come into London, that was there. That's not there anymore. That was only there for like 6-8 months or something. But that's like a 5-meter wide screen using one of our ALR materials. That's a 10,000 lumen projector driving that screen. And that speaks to why the the projection often gets used, because the screen itself was low weight. There's very little power there. There was no fire resistance on the display materials. There's a whole bunch of drivers to why people use projection, but relating it back to the MTR thing is that a lot of people, Matthew Slack, the Microsoft Global Black Belt for Canada, he ran this big event earlier this week that I participated in with Matthew Mashinsky from the Hive, and they were saying that a lot of the people there had kind of issues with Microsoft, using projection, kicking back, and the reality is that a lot of people do have poor experience with projection. Putting a inadequately specified projector onto a normal white screen, onto or a white wall, even heaven forbid, and in colleges and so forth, and that's understandable, because that really is not good for the kind of level of user experience that's required in a Teams room. But projection, in my view, in my experience, is actually the best technology for Teams rooms, and also it's the most economic to buy if you're going to do it properly, and it's also the most economic to run, which is becoming a very big point, particularly in education and government circles. But it's not. You've got to qualify what you mean by projection. So that's the background to my business. But we consult, and we do design services, and we do troubleshooting. But last year, off the back of this momentum that we've got going, I separated out the consulting into a separate practice.
I was wondering about the separate practice. Martin, were you gonna?
Yeah, I guess. Is it still the case that projectors and bulbs are exceptionally expensive? I mean, I don't know projectors, but it was always the case, perhaps when I was at school, all projectors very expensive. Change the bulb can cost as much as a projector.
Yeah, that's a great question, Martin, because what's happened in my main kind of area of engaging commercially with people. I mean, I engage with end users and user groups and standards groups and but commercially, Visual Displays engages with AV integrators. The honest truth is, with the advent of flat panel displays and the way that they've moved up, and they've kind of reached their headroom at around 98-inch, 16:9, a lot of integrators have actually de-skilled in projection. It used to be one of the core skills, and then you've got a whole generation of people coming into the industry who projection is just like, oh, what did you do in the war, Dad? But now you speak to something that someone like me takes for advantage. There's actually been a real revolution in projector technology over the last couple of years. Projectors have this so-called cold lamp technology, they're laser phosphor technology, and what that means is projectors are now maintenance free for 20,000 hours. Their running costs are just a fraction of those of flat panel displays, per square meter. They've got the same software that you can maintain and control and run them over enterprise level globally in the same way that you can run an estate of large format displays and DV LEDs. they can be specified and used in exactly the same way. And and so that innocent question that you asked, Martin, it's right on the money. Is that people like me, because I live and breathe this stuff. I just assume everybody knows what I know, but in fact, that's a really, really fundamental point.
Yeah, I mean, I only know projectors from when perhaps I experienced them at school, or
Yeah.
one up from annotation from the clear piece of paper, and then you're in the school with the projector, and it was always like, oh, I'd really love a projector, but it's dead expensive. But that was a long time ago, so I imagine as everything else has come along, I mean, I haven't kept up with projector technology, so I just live with my school of thought for when I knew projectors. But I imagine they've come along, and it sounds like they have a long way. More than a bulb.
They've gone massively. But the other issue historically with that, which has had to adjust and is adjusting, as we think about Teams room design, is that you have to think of it as a display. Because a projected display is basically a function of projector, screen, and the ambient light that's falling on that screen. And so projector quality is actually and brightness, which is I'll come back to as a word, because it's kind of it's a weasel word. Projector quality and image quality is actually paradoxically about how black the image is, and so it's the black level of the image that actually makes for it. If you think about about being able to work and operate all day without having eye strain, the reference for that is the printed page. And if you think what the attributes of that the printed page are, is that it's very low luminance. It's not bright, but it's got really great black levels, and it's got and the contrast. So the difference between the black level and the white level on the same page at the same time, also with good resolution, that is actually the benchmark for what good visual acuity, a good visual experience is. And so that's one of the paradoxes. It is with MTR design, because there's a kind of a fallacy there that bright is good. The flat panel displays, although they can be turned down, and particularly large format direct view DVLED, the big LED screens, that's a signage technology, and so the whole point about this, they should be bright. But when it comes to designing spaces, and this is actually saving money, not costing money. Brightness is not a benchmark. It's image quality, and that means image contrast. But it's thinking about the whole projection thing as a display technology, as a display proposition, and not just I'm going to get this box and hang it on the wall and shine it at something. It just needs that extra level of stuff that needs doing. But that's what we do in visual displays. That's what we bring to the party.
So you mentioned it, and I think Martin, maybe jokingly, when we talked about having you on, display formats: 21:9, 16:9, 4:3. Why do all these different things exist? And then how does it apply towards in our world, Microsoft Teams and Teams rooms?
Yeah. Well, that is that's a very current question, and also you can throw into that 16:10, because at the moment the main professional projection resolution is WUXGA, which is 1920 by 1200, which is 16:10. But that is a temporary aspect ratio, because content is in 16:9, and when we make when everybody makes the inevitable permanent transition to the next step, which is 4K UHD, which is 16:9. That is the main aspect ratio. Now, when Microsoft was first showing the various widescreen formats at the Hive, both the visuals and some of the early iterations of what they did used 32:9. Now that made it really hard. That was a great and very impressive demonstration. But if you look very closely at it, there are a couple of things there which made it unsatisfactory in my view, and I suspect that that's what they found at the Hive too in practice. First of all, you had to use 2 projectors, and the logistics and the design and the accuracy that's needed to run 2 projectors is actually like a step too far. And also, but if you looked at the layout with the shallow curve of the front row table, what was actually happening is that the people at one end of the table, the view of the far end of the screen was way too acute and made it actually quite hard to see. So that got tried out. That was an example of an ideation, and they put it in place and they tried it, and then they moved to 21:9. 21:9. Now 21:9 actually has a as a background, as a kind of as movie scope, as a movie format. So it has validity. When we were first in this area, we looked at you having 2 soft edge blended projectors so that you'd have a continuous image. That's something that we do a lot of, particularly in simulation. But again, it was a great way of we can do it, but it added complexity, expense, and in the end, the drivers for all of this are how can we do these spaces at enterprise level and roll them out consistently and easily and install them quickly and efficiently across the globe. But the 21:9 layout, Michael, that's really turned that's a strong thing. I've worked with it a lot now, and it works really, really well. We had that question earlier on about the around the table configuration, and although there's a push and a pull thing there, because there's like an algorithm there, because if you have the end of the table a certain width, then you can have 21:9 in a very large size. If the proportions of the room are kind of longer relative to the width, then that takes you back to 16:9. Now I don't know what the future of the roadmap holds, and I'm sure you're probably more privy than me. But there have been front row layouts in both 16:9 and 21:9. Obviously, 21:9 for front row is the optimum, but for these rooms that are longer than they are wider, then I just think one really generous size screen running 16:9. That ticks the boxes on what I described earlier as the hierarchy of needs. You've got to decide what are the non-negotiables, what have got to be right up there at the list, and then you finesse it. It's like you've got to go through the process, and you've got to show your workings, and you just got to put your best foot forward in the end.
Yeah, and I think to your point, there isn't one correct answer. You already said based off room layout, if it's long and narrow or wide. Also, in the Microsoft documentation, if you dig into front row or signature teams rooms, they recommend 21:9 for that view. But that layout isn't necessarily the best layout for every room or every meeting type. Yeah. So 16:9 is fine for most every other room type.
Yeah. So when I'm consulting with clients, obviously people much prefer that there's some sort of cookie cutter answer to these things. But although I'm describing this as an algorithm to go through those design processes, in the end, you have to help them. You have to help the clients, make the journey themselves and buy into it. You're doing some amazing bits of slide content identification. So congratulations to you. This is the other thing that we're recommending to clients, and that's to say that, you know, if clients are just not sure whether they're going to be using Front Row consistently, and if they know that they're going to be using Front Row some of the time and the rest of the time under, you know, other normal content, so-called normal content, and the thing to do is just to put in the largest 16:9 screen that you can, and the Microsoft recommended projectors, the Epson projectors, which have both a 16:9 and a 21:9 EDID. You can toggle between the two modes, and also you can move that band, that 21:9 band that would appear within the 16:9 overall image area. You can have that at the height that you want. So yeah, exactly right. You know, no one, there's no one answer fits all. But it is really important that users make the decision that works with their own workflows and their own room layouts and the kind of the imperatives that they've got to work to.
Let me wrap it up on this, and I guess it's slight promotion for you, but it's really something great you've done for the market. Can you tell us about your MTR, the Front Row white paper that you've written, and what the impetus of that is and what it is?
Yeah, well, that's really kind of you to call that out. So I've written a number of documents and best practice papers and standards papers, and I got really tremendously excited when the first thought pieces started to go out. There's one particular document that's still out there that was I think it was co-authored by Jimmy and Joe Saracen, Jimmy Vaughan and Joe Saracen, and there was some incredible visuals there, and but you know, I've done the legendary 10,000 hours of being in a whether or not you subscribe to that view. But basically, I cannot go into a room and not notice everything. And particularly these visuals have been very carefully thought out, and they were CGI, they were computer graphics, but they were so exciting, and that spoke to all kinds of experiences, all kinds of resonances for me. But the way that I work, the heuristics that we work to in the consulting practice is that what you have to do in order to be able to address all of the issues, holistically within a space, you need to break it down into the component elements. And so what I did with the white paper was just to do that in a kind of an early draft form. The first one I wrote was for internal Microsoft use, and then I versionized it so that it could go out there. And it was as much it's genuinely a white paper in the sense of it's not telling people what to do, but it does actually break the space down into all of the elements, thinking about acoustics and lighting and room finishes and room reflectances and natural light control. And that white paper, which is there, you can download it from my website. I do almost daily posts on LinkedIn, and there are download links to that very often. That's out there, and it's just trying to kind of help people to think about things, and I'm developing that more. But from that, I'm currently writing a book on Microsoft Teams Room design, and so you ain't seen nothing yet, Mr. Tresser.
Hey, if you need an early a proofer, let me know. Happy to help.
Oh yeah, careful what you wish for is all I can say.
I mean, I wrote a book as well, and so the technical editing and a couple people looking at it was useful. Finding the mistakes, even if it's just a typo, it was all really helpful. And then I can tell you that if you're actually going to print this book, make sure you go for the proof copy and then read it, because it's amazing how many errors you find when reading it like a normal person and not just scrolling through Microsoft Word through 300 pages of Microsoft Word.
100%. The older I get, the more I appreciate all the editing that I can get a hold of. Absolutely.
But yeah, for those who don't know, the white paper, I saw it. You gave about a year or two ago, right? It's been out for about 2 years, and
Yeah, about a year and a half.
I think you kept bugging me, and I mean this positively. Like, hey, have you read it yet? Any feedback? And honestly, the first time I opened it, I'm like, this is like 42 pages. I don't have time to just like rip through this in like 5 minutes.
Who I am.
I kept pushing you off, and then I think I took it on a flight and read it on the flight because I got 2 hours of focus time. And I read it there, and it's like it was really in depth, eye opening. That's where, you told me about a VIX at ISE in Barcelona, but then reading that document brought to light that standards are not just lumens. It's the width of the display should match the width of the table, and all these things that are in that document. And it's like, this is eye opening. So for those of us who are not raised as an AV person. I mean, I came up through IT, so I've set up firewalls and Exchange servers and Skype for Business servers and all that. Then I moved into this AV world. It's like, this is not like to you said earlier, you know so much that you forget that they're the little people like me who are still learning it. And I do the same on Teams rooms when I train. Is how basic do I get without offending people, but basic enough that people don't go 5 minutes in and go, I'm lost already. So I was trying to find that balance. So reading that white paper took me from not quite zero to hero, because you don't want me running around designing rooms necessarily, but 0 to aware of what a hero does.
Well, you're certainly my best friend this Friday.
Like Jimmy and Ilya are best friends. We're best friends today. I think we wrapped it up. Thanks a lot, Greg. Tell people we kind of already did with visual displays and in your consulting, and definitely a follow on LinkedIn. But what do you got going on?
LinkedIn's a cool space. I love LinkedIn, and message me and look at my posts, and just keep in touch.
And those who are listening on the podcast version is Greg Jeffreys, Jeffreys, Visual Displays Limited. So when you search for him on LinkedIn, that's the one to find. Thanks, Greg. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. That was a real blast.
Yep. All right. Let me get the going away music here. And thanks everyone. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, which will probably be a CommsB next wrap up show. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye.